Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us all here in the business of podcasting space. I'm Molly DeMellier, head of communications for Sounds Profitable, and I'm joined by my very dear friend, Joe Copeman, who is also the director for commercial at Global Studios. We're going to cover everything from IP, fandom, AI, of course, and obviously podcasting. But Joe, first, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and Global?
For sure. Hello. For those of you who don't know me in the audience, hello, I'm Joe Copeman. I've been at Global now for 3 months. My previous role was at Acast, where I was responsible for all ad revenue in all markets. I've known Molly for quite some time from our time at Acast together. We're not just friends, but running partners, right?
Yeah.
We've run around the Hollywood Hills and all the way around Norfolk as well. So
and
there we
can.
are. And can. So yeah, we run together.
All right, well, let's just get into it,
Okay.
shall we? So we're currently at a moment where content is incredibly abundant. And there's no doubt that AI is absolutely accelerating that. So first, what does that mean for the value of content that's out there today?
I think we all agreed that there's a lot of content out there now. I think it's a case of content overload in so many ways. Even today, having my breakfast, seeing the news about a 6-week test we're doing in the UK for kids to be stripped of social media to see what the effect of that is. I think there's obviously a belief that it's good for kids to be away from social media. I look at my son when he's around the house, Monty, and he is literally following a screen around most of the time, which is kind of sad. But you know, it's not all bad, and that's where us in media have this real balance of which way we want to perceive the benefits of it. There's a lot of content for sure, and I think it serves different purposes. I think this industry, in terms of podcasting and social media, is one of an algorithmic age where AI understands what we like. And it serves us more content following what we like, and generally we're open to that because it's easy for us to digest. That's fine. It's great for discovery of things we like. I think what we fail to get from that necessarily is new stimulus some of the time. I think we follow the same path too often.
Yeah, and I think you said something earlier to me that I really liked, which was algorithms are great at being right, but humans are necessary to be interesting. So can you just explain a little bit more about that for me?
Yeah, I mean, the way I see AI is that, and you might have heard this before, but it's essentially averaging everything that's out there. That's how AI works. It's collecting data for everything that exists historically and using that data to suggest to you what it thinks you want. In that, there's no new creativity. There's nothing essentially new and done by gut feel. And I think that's what humans, thankfully, all of us will still always have the edge in, is that ability to, have those ideas from the heart, have that hunch, have that intuition, which you're never going to get from AI. So I think there's this concern about AI taking over the world, but as long as us humans still have our brains and our hearts and our hunches, that can never be bettered, I don't think, by AI.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I know at Global, you're so focused on the human element of it. And you're really leaning away from calling podcasts and hosts. And you're really leaning more into shows and stars and the human aspect of the content. So can you just explain to me a bit more about the thought process behind all of that? And how does that actually change what it is that you're developing as an end product?
Yeah, sure. This notion of kind of what a podcast is has been debated now for years. 5 years ago to 10 years ago, it was easy. A podcast is simply an on-demand piece of audio that's uploaded to your hosting platform and distributed across various podcast apps. Simple. The last few years, with video emerging as such a strong part of the podcasting landscape, it's really made us think, well, what is a podcast? What's that word actually mean these days? And it's something that a lot of us, myself, don't necessarily know the answer to, and that's the beauty of it. Essentially, podcasting as we've known it has transformed into simply great content, and it's more now defined about the way you consume, when you consume, on what device you consume, and that's where lots of people have their own ideas of this. So, at Global now, we're very much moving away from the word podcast. And that's not a sad thing. It's just we evolve as a business. Podcasting is always very dear to a lot of our hearts, but we're really embracing the idea of it becoming a show. And that word epitomizes so much about the content. You have amazing people making great content. And for me, the show really sums up the always-on brand that is the content they're trying to create for you, and that bond between the fan and the creator. And I think within the show, we've been trying to distill this for the last few weeks. There seems to be three main ingredients for it within a show. You have the star, so the host, the presenter. You have the story, the format, and you have the stage. And each part of those are really important. I think the final point, the stage, is one in video now that is so important. We are going from an age where podcasts are recorded in a studio with a couple of mics and someone's got a mug of tea in front of them, to an age now where all of our podcasters, their sets are impeccable and they're so different to each other, have their own identity, their own look and feel. One of the networks we work with, the Fellas, really epitomises that. They have about 15 podcasts. Each of them have their own set. And they are so different to each other. The colours, the look, the feel. You can literally go from one to the other and just immerse yourself in this new show just by the look and the feel of where you're walking from. So I think those 3 points, the star, the show, the sets, the story, are the key ones to make up why the show is so important now. And if you get it right, of course, then you add scale to it and you're on to success. I'm throwing a lot of S words at you there, aren't I? I could keep flowing with S's here.
The 4 S's of podcasting,
yeah, exactly,
I think we're going to hear. Now, you mentioned the Fellas, and I know that you mentioned to me previously that this was a signal to you that Global was very serious about this new generation of creators, and specifically more with Gen Z audiences and video-led content. So what does that full spectrum of talent really look like?
So I think it was about last September when I was leaving Acast and thinking about new pastures, and that's when Global announced the acquisition of the Fellas. And for me, that was a major statement to market that actually Global were now serious about looking at the new era of podcasting, where it's going. It wasn't just about creating similar shows to ones they'd historically made. The Fellas, as I say, is everything about the future of podcasting for a Gen Z video-focused audience. So for me, that was a really important point. And then after that, coming in and starting in January, the second acquisition was then The Overlap. So for those of you who know The Overlap, it's Gary Neville's podcast network, which again, hugely video focused. Gary wouldn't say he runs a podcast network at all. It's a media entity. It's fantastic, and you go to the set, and again, it's cameras everywhere. It's a real TV set, if you like. So for me, it felt like Global are really looking to the future. We've had a new CEO about a year now with Simon Pitts, and the whole strategy behind where Global Studios is now going is entirely different to this time last year or even 6 months ago. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I joined, because I thought this is an area I want to get into, and it's embracing this new era of podcasting. So really exciting. Yeah,
and being the ignorant American, you told me that
never.
The beauty of Global is the reach. You reach 95% of the UK population, and I don't think there's anyone else that really can say that. So how does that amplification change the way that you think about what's possible for talent and growing shows?
Yeah, I mean, it's great for both the creator and the brands. So from a creator point of view, where as Global we'll have an edge is this ability to showcase talent elsewhere on all the wider ecosystem that Global has. So, I'm talking about the outdoor sites all around the country. I'm talking about TFL, the underground, the digital sites. 95% coverage of the population is huge. And that's where, radio, God love radio, still does a massively important job, whether it's Heart, Capital, Smooth, Gold, X, you name it. It reaches so many audiences in so many different ways. And it's a real companion to them as well. So, when we talk to creators and the opportunity comes up to work with Global and, be seen and heard across all these different spaces, it's quite an attractive, proposition. So from a creator point of view, I think that's really important. And then from a brand point of view, and this is great because, we're just getting started and I don't think we've done anywhere near what we can do in this space. I've run so many campaigns where, you look at what we can do on the podcast, on social, across other podcasts, but the ability to actually take talent and amplify a message for a brand across all of radio, across all the nation, across outdoor, and it can be time targeted, geo targeted, all this kind of thing as well. It's such an opportunity that I don't think we've properly tapped into yet at Global. So yeah, hopefully given the next year or so, there'll be some incredible campaigns.
Yeah, at Sounds Profitable, we have a lot of research that shows that the audiences that have a relationship already with the creators that the brands are investing in, the stronger the relationship with the brand. So do you have examples at Global of brands and creators that have this relationship that is working well?
Yeah, I think one happened actually last weekend. We were working with Barclays and women's football, and so we worked with Pitchside from the fellas and Chloe versus the World, and getting these creators out to sports grounds, to the football grounds, and actually creating content there. We have lots of associations with various sports rights companies and so on as well. So to get access to these places is fantastic behind the scenes, but also to work with creators who just have that total connection with their fans, their audience is so important. And that's when these campaigns really come to life for the brand, when you're going beyond the studio and taking them out and doing things at different times of day, and it's just going way beyond that one podcast or show ecosystem into a much wider space there. So yeah, it's really tapping into that unique connection between fans and creators.
Yeah, I think what you described is really just how much content creation has fundamentally changed media buying and planning. So can you share a little bit more about what this actually means in practice for the advertisers? Yeah,
so I've got a view on this, which is that I think media planning is changing a lot, or has done a lot in, I guess the 20 years that I've been in media. Forever, historically, media planning has been about reach and frequency and target audience. Try and understand your target audience, reach them a given number of times. Is it a 40 OTH or opportunity to see? That's kind of historically your planning cycle. And I think now with the kind of the total explosion of the creator economy and influencers, there's so many opportunities now for brands to not just work out who they're trying to reach and reach them with a great creative and make sure that creative is really good to make the biggest impact they can, but there's a bridge here now, which is the creator. And that's the middle ground to get from brand to fan, and use that creator for good to try and use that influence to create that message and have that believed and have that endorsement used. So I think that's where historically podcasting has done so well. Endorsement is nothing new. People have been doing that for donkey's years. But I think that's why the influencer economy has been so popular now. And you have brands like Unilever who want to now spend half their entire marketing budget on influencers to talk to their fans and use their unique power they have over their fans to harness their brand messaging.
Mm-hmm. Donkey years, I like
donkey
that.
Is that an American expression, UK expression? Have you ever heard it before?
Definitely UK.
Okay,
yeah.
Donkey's years. We all know donkey's years, right?
Now, I do want to transition a little bit into IP here. I think Global has a really unique perspective on IP. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think coming from a company like Acast, which is fantastic, love my time there, there's no IP in that business. It's third-party representation for podcasts, and that's great, and that has its benefits. Coming to a company like Global, suddenly there's a whole world of new opportunities around IP, and I've been learning a lot in these last 10 weeks since I started there. And there's a spectrum of how we work with IP at Global, which has been fascinating. So you have your complete owned and originals, where you have 100% ownership and IP of it, and you create the idea, and you hire in your talents and you own it. Then you have acquisitions, so more like Fellas and the Overlap, where we'll acquire a podcast or a podcast network and have a majority stakeholder in it or stakeholding in it, and that's majority IP. And then there's this really interesting middle ground of kind of shared commissioning and co-production, where we work with all sorts of creators and production companies and are open to looking at how we can work with them and what support we can give them. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, the promotion across outdoor, across radio, all these elements hold significant value for creators. So the question for them is, would they want to give up some of their IP to a company like Global in return for this promotion and access to all the production facilities we have, the team we have, and all the talent that goes up and down the building at Global as well, as hosts and guests and that type of thing too. How worthwhile is that to them? So that's something for us to talk through. Then of course, it's not to say we don't do the third party representation, absolutely we do as well. So you've got these kind of four areas of IP ownership going from total to none across the spectrum, which I find fascinating. And I think where we're going to succeed is by having a real portfolio version of it. So there'll be reasons for working with different creators in different ways here. So yeah, it's going to be a mixed solution, I'd say.
Yeah, and with that spectrum, as you describe it, you've said that owning IP really isn't the goal, but it's that owning the right IP is. So can you explain what really makes for the right IP at Global?
Yeah, the right IP needs to be transferable, I think. It needs to be something that doesn't exist and revolve around one human being, one presenter. There's a danger, obviously, that presenter, they could do anything. He or she could be cancelled. They could not want to do the podcast anymore. So it can't be too reliant on one person. It's great if it's an idea that can be expanded into offshoots, extra versions of that show. Might it work in different markets and different languages? The big obvious one is, can it exist on TV? Can it exist in film? Can it go beyond where the show is right now? So there's all these things to think about, and how important that is, and how valuable the show could be for that reason. So yeah, there's lots of things to look out for with IP. Also, it gives you that skin in the game forever as well. It's not a short-term bet. If you're after instant return on investment, maybe shared IP is not the right thing for you. If you're making a bet on something that you think can expand and evolve over the years, then possibly it is the right thing. So it's you have to weigh up your short-term and your long-term goals as well.
Yeah, you touched on something of the human aspect of IP and how creators can be canceled. At the end of the day, we're talking about people, and I think the most predictable thing about humans is that you can't really predict them. So can you tell a little bit more about how you think about surviving very human things like getting canceled or talent changes even on a smaller scale?
Yeah, I mean, it's we are wonderful things, humans. We are random at nature, and anyone that knows me well knows that I'm quite a random person as well. And I think that's great. It's funny. I was with a friend of mine on Friday, and she was trying to convince me that all she tries to do in life is be normal. And I thought that's not no way to live a life. Surely, the whole point of our existence is that we are humans. We have gut feelings, and we have kind of random thoughts, and we can provide them around us in the best way we possibly can. So I think that's something that we can really tap into, and that's where great ideas come from, and that's where great IP can come from as well. I think with the emergence of AI and the algorithm and so on, going back to the first point here, it's just going to churn out similar things to what we've done before, but in a way that is correct and on point. But there's so many new ideas that come from the humans, at Global, other companies around here as well.
Yeah, I think just how sometimes can IP actually slow down the production process? And going back to more of the human element.
Yeah, I mean it's not right for everyone at all. It can be complex. It requires more intense negotiation, and there's no guarantee it's going to work as well. So many people have put money behind IP bets that haven't paid off as well. So it's not a given. It's not this sexy great thing that you must have IP. That's at all costs. That shouldn't be the way at all. There's different reasons for doing it, and there's as you said, it can be complex. It can delay things, and it's a bet that you're committing to something that might not turn out well for any number of reasons. So it's always a balance. It's when to look for the right ones, and luckily at Global there's a brilliant team who have done this for years, and they've made some solid bets with shows like Coining It recently, Explosive Lies. We have some great shows coming out, and no doubt there will be ones that aren't right as well, and that's part of the nature. You're not always going to back the winning horse in this, but if you can kind of hone your skills on perfecting the ones that you can, then great.
Mm-hmm. It's a numbers game, I imagine.
It's a numbers game to an extent, yeah.
Yeah. Now, to get a little bit deeper on AI and algorithms, we can't really escape it today.
No, we're talking about it.
Where do you think technology is actually creating anything new?
I think the beauty of AI is that I think discoverability and the way we work with algorithms can be of huge benefit. I think from a show point of view in the podcast landscape, it's great for surfacing parts of shows and providing them to the people who want to see that. and it's great for discoverability. It's great for adding adding more to a media plan. When you look at huge sponsorships like Stick to Football, which is Gary Neville's flagship show, so many impressions are based on the short form parts that are served up and reshared by other humans and fans of the show. That's great, and there's true value there. And other companies like Flight Story, they've been quite open about how they use the algorithms and surface content, and fair play to them. And we do it too on shows like News Agents. It's a really important part of the always on searchability, discoverability part of podcasting and the shows that we represent. There can be a whole lot of good behind it as well. But as I say, it's just, you're not going to get, it's serving people who have a taste for that type of content and have followed something. It's using their data to show it. I keep thinking back to Spotify as well, and my own kind of music habits. And when you listen to an artist you love on Spotify and you go to radio, it will surface more songs similar to that song from similar artists. Fine. But from my point of view, I like a hugely eclectic amount of music. I want to have one thing over here and go something drastically different over here. So that's not what algorithms are best at doing. They're kind of churning out similar content that appeases the end user and makes them happy and comfortable.
I think that's right. I think we're also seeing a degree of content that's created by generative AI. Do you have any concerns about that and the value of the content that's being put out?
Yeah, it's yes, some of it is questionable. It's it's short. There's heaps of bad content out there, like really poor content. And from a brand point of view, it's about understanding impact over impression. You can align your brands with any number of impressions across any amount of targeting for audience or similar types of content. You might not know exactly what you're going to get. It might be cheap content. It might be unsavory content. Obviously, there's heaps of brand safety that you can work with and vendors who do this really well. But I think there's a danger of losing that impact over the impression in terms of value. I think it's important for brands we work with to reassure them that the shows we work with, the content we work with, has true value. It's brand safe. It has that resonance with the audience that the brands crave. Always impact over impression, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so to close this out, I do want to bring it back to the beginning and your note that algorithms are great at being right, but humans are necessary to be interesting. So looking 5-10 years down the line, what will audiences and brands value most when everything else just becomes easier to produce?
I think the human gut intuition. I think the pure randomness, the rebellion we have. You don't find, if you go into chat and you ask questions, you were saying this yesterday, that you ask ChatGPT to actually confront you and challenge you. Usually it doesn't. Usually it says more of what you like, and it's great. And well done, Joe. Yes, good point. Say it again or something. That's not what humans should do. It's good to be challenged. It's good to have people say, no, how about this way? Have you tried this? I think that's a bad idea. I've got an amazing idea over here. I might shock you with this. There's that part AI is not doing right now. It's not coming up with those standalone ideas, those rebellious streaks. So I think there's rebellion in humans that you don't find in AI, and that should be savoured. I think that's what's going to really make what we do as human beings so important going forward. So 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I think humans will still be making incredible things, great ideas. The best ideas that we won at Cannes or at any award ceremony I think will come from a human. The nugget of the idea, it'll be perfected by AI for sure. And it'll be polished and made to look brilliant and sparkling thanks to AI. But the nugget, the absolute connection, the idea, I think will forever be the human.
All right. Well, I think that's just about our time.
Great. Thank you very much.